Rick Pitino, one of the esteemed coaches in the history of college basketball. I mean, look at this guy. He goes to Iona, fucking Iona, and puts them on the map. I proudly wear my Iona shirt that Leslie Visser gave us.
Wear it all the time.
Around town, and people go,
Iona.
Go there. Anyway, so he does real well there. He goes to St. John's. Not an easy spot. You have Connecticut is dominating college basketball for the last couple of years. Now, naturally, you would think that you could justify some kind of drop-off. I don't know that you can condemn Danny Hurley, although I enjoy watching Danny Hurley in agony almost as much as I enjoy watching Jerry Jones after a pick six when they cut the shot of him in the skybox, and he's got his son there, and he looks over and says, "Who put this fucking team together?" Look at Jerry.
You asshole.
I mean, if Doge was looking into the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry would be gone, although he would be catching a tremendous tax break, no doubt. Maybe it wouldn't be surprised if he became an advisor to the Trump administration.
Problem with Hurley, falling off is fine. I mean, 18-9 is not the worst record, especially when you're back to back. He's such a jerk off.
Unglued.
I don't know if he's number 2 in sports, but you're not wrong. Watching him just lose it now that they're not good, and he's turned down 2 massive jobs. And he's watching it dwindle away. He's a little baby.
It's exacerbated this particular characteristic of Danny Hurley, which is not a flattering one. I mean, you look like a Kim Mulkey type of asshole when you're this demonstrative and then always complaining and never really acknowledging that the other team just happens to be really good.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
I remember where I was, Lubie. I remember where I was, which isn't often easy. Sometimes, especially when we were lining up pyramids of cocaine, not even 8 balls, but pyramids of cocaine back in the early 80s here in South Florida. It was difficult to remember where you were the night before. But I remember where I was 51 years ago, Lubie, 51 years ago today, when at the Miami Beach Convention Center, live from the Miami Beach Convention Center, Muhammad Ali, then known as Cassius Clay, he would become Muhammad Ali the next day, beat Sonny Liston on a stoppage. Did they call that officially the 7th round? Liston didn't come out for the 7th round. I guess, would it be a 6th round TKO? Turned out Sonny really did have a shoulder injury. Some speculate that he injured his shoulder playing golf in the afternoon. That's how lightly he was taking Cassius Clay at the time. And, of course, we all remember, kind of like that Y.A. Tittle. Did you ever see that picture? I had a drawing of it for a long time hanging on my wall when I was a kid. Robert Rieger was a known sketch artist of sports depictions that he would put together. And he had a drawing of that famous picture of Y.A. Tittle on his knees with the blood trickling down the side of his helmet. Have you ever seen that? If you watch any NFL films, no doubt you've seen that like a zillion times. And everybody remembers the little blood spot there. Took 6 stitches to heal up Sonny Liston. Nobody in their right mind thought that Cassius Clay at the time had any chance whatsoever. 8-1 underdog. I don't know that those odds were overwhelming enough to entice you to bet on Cassius Clay in that fight, because everybody thought this kid was going to get destroyed. Sonny Liston coming out of prison, fighting for the mob, it seemed to have no remorse whatsoever about if he had killed a guy in a ring, you thought he would have just put a notch on his belt. And yet it was an entirely different, I don't know that he was entirely different type of character, but the stories about Sonny are certainly legendary. And, of course, we all know that Ali went on to become, is it fair to say, Lubie, I don't know that this holds true anymore since he passed away several years ago, but is he still the most iconic sports figure in all of history? Because that's saying a lot. I mean, you got so many different people that you could put in that category. Michael Jordan probably would come to mind first as the most commonly known guy, but it was Muhammad Ali, is it fair to say, the most iconic sports figure that ever competed in any form of athletics?
Jordan, because of how he treated everything outside of basketball, limited himself. He was huge while he played worldwide. And the youth, because of his shoes, still have a clue of what Jordan was. But Jordan didn't transcend sports on purpose. And it's fine, because the Republicans buy shoes too thing, but his lore is really just kept to basketball for the most part. Ali, because of all the stuff with Vietnam, because of and he went from a guy that was once hated because people were fucking morons about how the civilians
they just him for dodging it. I was irritated by the fact that Ali dodged the draft there.
it was.
I was a red-blooded American. I believed everybody should go and do whatever the hell the country asks you to do. And guess what? We're getting back to that.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
that the people feel that way, but we're getting back to the point where they're going to tell you what to do, and you're fucked if you don't do it.
Ali was just different. Ali transcended sports because of that, because he took a stand that no one understood, because they were look, using the word moron, I guess is dumb, because at the time we were all manipulated and brainwashed. But
When I was in high school, Lubie, not to interrupt, I still remember Mr. Tybin in social studies class, when the Vietnam War was first escalating to the point where people were taking notice. I asked the people to line up one side of the room or the other, who was in favor of it and who was opposed. And there were like three guys on the other side in the opposition. And the smartest kid in my class and in the school at the time was a guy named Ed Bear. And he gave a very eloquent speech about how a small war, this is very Trumpian. He was ahead of his time, this guy. A small war is good for the nation's economy, and that was one of the reasons that we should be in Vietnam. Can you imagine?
That was
the thinking. A year later, it changed 180 degrees, diametrically opposed.
Well, that's only because World War I or II boomed our economy, but that it's like this idea that war automatically booms the economy is not true. Like, war halts the economy in so many fucking ways with trade, and you now take your focus away from industry into war, that it's actually a load of fucking garbage.
Well, this kid was dead wrong, obviously.
Well, it's just brainwashed. Again, it wasn't his intellect.
That's how we thought, though. Most people thought that way.
But I bet you 4 years later or 3 years later, when you were in college, you didn't think that, right?
Oh, no, we were burning draft cards. And I was never a flag burner. I had too much respect for the country, the fact that we were able to protest, which was good. I'm pretty sure there will be a mandatory executive order coming out that all protests against anything that Trump does will soon be punishable by death. Firing squad, too. I think they'll bring back firing squads. Hey, give that guy a blindfold, last drag of the
to me, it's Ali, right? Like, there's just, he by many account was the best in his sport. Yeah. When his sport was still, if not the greatest sport, top 3 greatest sports in this country. And when that position meant something, and then he also used his platform for more. So there's something about Ali that he even transcends to the younger generation. They know who Ali is. I don't know what other athlete does that. Like LeBron, maybe LeBron for this next generation, just because.
LeBron, he isn't popular enough in those international circles where people are saying, "Well, what a great man he is."
Yeah.
I don't believe. I mean, a great basketball player, and seems like a really good guy. I mean, there's not a lot of dirt on LeBron James. You may not like everything that he does, but let's face it, he's having to fend off a lot of stuff just to be himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, since the guy Windhorst has been watching him. I mean, if LeBron James masturbated, Windhorst was all over it when he was. Maybe I don't mean to imply that Windhorst was in direct contact with him. All right, but anyway, it's a 51st anniversary, a classic event that took place in Miami Beach Convention Center, and I remember I was listening to the fight on the radio. Lubie, if you can imagine that. I mean, doesn't that conjure up images of when they show you something from the 50s or the 40s where everybody's around like this giant wood-framed radio? What was in those in terms of equipment? Were they any better than transistor radios? The transistor was a huge innovation. Man, I grew up a long time ago. I mean, think about it. Now you're looking at your phone and you're making bets. And back then, wow, I mean, people would gather around the radio and just stare at the radio because it seemed like if you were looking at the speaker, it enhanced your ability to kind of envision what was going on. But it was certainly a shocker. I'd seen a lot of Cassius Clay fights. In what I always deemed to be, I think the greatest, it might be one of the greatest sports anthology. I don't know if you call it anthology because it only covered one sport, so it wouldn't be that. But sports series ever. What was, of course, the Gillette Fight of the Week, which I'm now in debate. What was the Gillette Fight of the Week? I want to say it was on a Saturday night. It could have been a Friday night. I want to say it was on a Saturday night, and it was followed, I believe, and maybe some of our old geezers out there can verify this for me, by the show Make That Spare, which was a bowling show where they had 5 spares that these pros would have to convert.
Oh, God.
And whoever did the best, obviously, was the champion that week. And I think they went on and retained the right to come back the next week and defend, a little King of the Hill type of thing. And I used to be able to name all 5 spares that they had. I'm not sure. That was the 2, 4, 5, 8. You're a bowler, Lubie, so you can relate to this. You can see the configuration of pins
yes.
by the numerology. 2, 4, 5, 8, the 1, 2, 4, 7, which was known as the picket fence. And then they went to the baby split, the 310. Did they throw the 5-7 split in there? And I'm blank. Oh, they had another baby split, like the 7-8 or whatever that was, where you had the ball
Yeah,
and shoot the ball right between the two pins.
you could also do that. I
Yeah.
would over, but so they didn't do the 710. The 710 was the one that was
7-10, nobody could make. So I mean, why would you?
I think I made one once in my life. Like the 710 is such a.
You made a 7-10 split?
I think I did it once. I think.
Oh, get out of here! That's like getting a hole in one.
I
What are
think
you
I just
talking?
a hole in one. Yeah. So that's why I don't know if because it was so long ago. But the 710 is.
A pin had to drop from above miraculously because the racket fucked up for you to get a 710.
You almost
Now and
have
then
that-
you would hit the one pin and it would slide across if you just nudged it. But you weren't going to be able to go outside either pin and have it slide across like you normally would convert a split, right? So yeah, I mean that was we would have to go to the right side of the pin and slide it over. Anyway, if anybody remembers, I think Make That Spare followed the Gillette fight of the week. It was either that or pro wrestling was on a different night with Vince McMahon Sr. And man, that was a thing of beauty as well. But the simplicity and the raw essence of that has been destroyed to the point where Vince McMahon made billions of dollars and then had to resign because he was in disgrace for sexual assault. But of course, his wife becomes the head of education in this country. Perfect sense. All right, enough on that. But I did want to commemorate that day. I just noticed that I was flipping around to some stuff online. Headlines, Lubie. You want to go with some headlines as we get into this, and you tell me where you want to begin today. All right.
I'm my new. Go for it.
All right. Luka gets a triple double going against the Dallas Mavericks. Return to Dallas. What do you think about that?
He
had
done better.
19 points, and I don't know. Are they over it in Dallas? I can't imagine that they feel too swift about that. I think they paid tribute to Luka Doncic as he came out there to play.
He didn't ask out. I mean, he was a lazy fuck. But he was in and out of the lineup because he is a lazy fuck. So his health's not been great, but he was still putting up numbers, and he did not ask out. He was actually shocked that they got rid of him. He was not trying to leave. He didn't want to leave. So there's no reason for them to be. It's not a Jimmy Butler situation where if they boo him, I'll be actually upset.
He wasn't making waves.
No, he was actually shocked. They should honor him. I mean, look, they were in the finals last year.
Yeah.
So
that's right. I mean, and why were they in the finals? Only because of Luka Doncic. So
Kyrie,
I guess you can't discount him completely. He's actually done a decent job of trying to maintain some sense and semblance of dignity for the team, which is odd since it's Kyrie Irving that's doing it. But I'll never forget. I mean, that Neil deGrasse Tyson line that he had about Kyrie Irving was pretty much classic. And he's been featured for some reason now on news channels, although I haven't really been paying that close attention. All right, so that's one. Luka gets a triple-double return to Dallas. I don't know. That's kind of minor, isn't it, Lubie? You're blowing off the NBA regular season as being meaningless and insignificant anyway. So I don't know what value to attach to that one. I wrote that down first. The Canes annihilated by Duke. I think everybody anticipated that. Our good friend Jim Sarney bombarded us yesterday almost on a 24-hour, every other minute basis, saying, you guys aren't talking enough about the fact that Duke is in town. Cooper Flag is here.
Like, what was there to say about it?
You knew the Canes were going to get creamed. That's the number 2 team in the country. And the Gators also lost yesterday.
Yeah, so a bad Georgia team.
That was a strange one because I was reveling in the fact I still, I guess, harbor some Gator inner, deep, subliminal Gator hatred.
Mm-hmm.
Going all the way back to Charlie Pell and the Pell Grants. Was that why the Pell Grants were named Pell Grants? Because Charlie was giving them out to virtually everybody, even though it was completely unjustified and there was no substantiation for these guys.
Yeah, Charlie Pell.
Charlie Pell.
Charlie Pell's grants. Yes, that's why they were called Pell Grants. And yes,
is that right? Really?
Yeah, they was after Charlie Pell, but they were like fucking grimy.
I thought it was just coincidence. Lubie. All this time I've been duped.
Wasn't he the governor or something at some point?
Charlie Pell?
Yeah, I mean that might be a different. There might be a different Pell, but I swore the Pell Grants
they're unconnected. I don't know. We might have to check that one out here. As we're giving out. I mean, it's good now because misinformation is widely accepted. In fact, if you're not dealing misinformation, then you're not really doing your job anymore. All right, so the Canes get crushed. I don't know that it was even worth watching. They lost by nearly 40 points in that game. The Florida Panthers get a win. A guy named Sutcliffe gets his first NHL goal. Justin Sutcliffe?
Oh, good.
Can't read my own writing. They're good though. I mean, they're not the top team in the NHL this year, But would you not give them a very? Do they have a viable chance of defending the Stanley Cup? They're behind a few teams, but not by a lot. Toronto's slightly ahead of them in their own division. Washington's playing great, and Ovechkin had another goal last night, so he's now within 12 of the great Wayne Gretzky, the great one himself. Winnipeg, remember they got off to that ridiculous start, but they slumped after that, and now they've come back. They're playing some good hockey, and they're ahead of them. Dallas is ahead of the Cats in terms of points accumulated. Las Vegas slightly ahead. Edmonton is in a free fall right now with 4 straight losses, but
They're like 6, and guess they're like 6 overall.
Okay, and which you would
third
say
in their conference, which is fine. I mean,
certainly representative of a chance to make a run in the National Hockey League as defending Stanley Cup champions. Is Bobrovsky as sharp as he was in the past? They lost to the Kraken their first game back after this international festival that they had as the All-Star game during the All-Star break, and they lost to the Kraken 2-1. It was tight, could have gone either way. And then they've since won 2 straight, including over, I thought Nashville. Weren't they knocking on the door not that long ago? Nashville Predators?
Well, a few years ago. I mean,
they're horrible now. 20 and 30. It's hard to have an overwhelming losing record because you can, get the overtime losses in there. That third category used to be ties. Now it's overtime losses. So it helps you avoid being 20 games under 500, but they're 10 games under. So the Cats win. That was good. Remember when we thought Paul Maurice was the French Joe Philbin, had no personality whatsoever? And then after the Stanley Cup championship and that speech he gave at the parade that they had, rain-soaked parade, was just absolutely a mess out there by the Fort Lauderdale beach. And Paul Maurice gets up, and it turned out he's the French Joe Pesci.
He was like dropping F-bombs everywhere. That's great.
How drunk was this guy? I mean, you have to applaud him. It turns out he's just laced with personality, and we thought he was a total stiff, and we're looking at it with a very curious kind of opinion that wow, I mean, that they hired a guy that has more losses than anybody else in NHL history. Now he's up there in wins too.
Yes.
But he didn't become the winningest coach, did he? Also, no.
I don't know. I think he's up there.
Paul Maurice, but he's for a guy that looks pretty good. He's been around forever, long enough to accumulate these kind of numbers, and so the Cats looking pretty strong. Maybe ready to mount a late season charge, but it would all depend on one Sergei Bobrovsky, would it not?
Oh yeah. Then I mean,
can he do it again? Does he have it in him? What do you think?
I don't know. You know, I have a love-hate relationship with him. I don't know. We've seen him now. That's 2 different times in his. Or was it the last year that he was he good or did I hate? This year I know he was really good until the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm trying to remember the last year's Stanley Cup run. Like I feel like he was good then. Like
he had to be good enough to win it.
No, the year that they lost.
Oh,
I'm trying to remember if it was him, like how good he was, because I remember hating him. You guys always know how much I hated him until this run, until the Stanley Cup Finals. Until the Stanley Cup Finals, he was fantastic this year, and it was reminiscent of what he did for Columbus. Like he's a guy that can get hot. He's a guy that has a lot of talent, but he seems to give away the stupidest fucking goals. I haven't watched like the regular season. I don't pay night in, night out attention.
They're a little hard to find, right? Because they moved to Scripps TV, which I think was the old Channel 33. And I have to remind myself when I see that they're in action, you'll be watching some other game, and there's a crawl comes up, shows the Panthers are in action, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's right, they're on a different stage. Are we just such? Is it because I'm old, or because we're such creatures of habit we can't accept the change?
No, I mean, yeah,
and it is kind of an obscure channel that I never normally click on. So, unless, like I said, you're a big fan of like Barney B. Jones reruns and Mod Squad and things like that, you're unlikely to have that set on your list of favorites. So I haven't seen very much of their season either, Lubie. An uneducated plug for the fact that they may certainly would be not impossible to figure them to win the Stanley Cup.
I think they're in there. Look, they lost a lot of guys, but they kept their core, and they were also able to, in the fashion we've seen the last few years from their GM, that they were able to replace guys that they sort of are just in a very similar spot. They're not setting a ridiculous pace, but again, this is year 3 of this being really, really good. So you don't really look at what the Lightning do. Like the Lightning have done this for like fucking a decade. Like they don't storm out in front of everyone. You don't have to do that. You want to be around. You don't want to be at the bottom of the pack. You want to be hanging around. You want to make a push at the end of the year like they did last year. And or they did 2 years ago too. Remember they almost missed the playoffs, and then they made a push at the end of the year and needed Pittsburgh to help them get in. Last year they made a push right before the end of the season after struggling for a little bit. Like, you just want to hang around. If you can be a top 3 or 4 seed in your conference and then make a push, hockey's as much about chemistry as fucking anything. And this team now, you've now seen Barkov take the reins and not be this guy who's nowhere to be found, right? Like, Kachuk gives them the physicality. Like, they have a goalie that they can trust, whether we trust him or not. They trust him, and they have a coach that now has a Stanley Cup fucking ring, and he was integral in getting them out of a lot of slumps. So they're in that place where you don't have to worry about them night in, night out, right? Like, let's get to the playoffs with this team and let them loose.
It does seem like Paul Maurice every time I see him interviewed or making a statement in a post-game situation is fueled with a lot of confidence. I think that Stanley Cup getting that, I don't know if it was a monkey that was on his back, but when we haven't won a championship, look, Danny Boy, still to this day, I mean, it was very rude of you to run up to him the last time we saw Marino and say, "Hey, you never won the title, Danny Boy. How do you feel about that?" Come on, Lubie, give the man a break. He was great.
I'm not Mayo. I've never done that. I loved him.
You never won nothing.
I was the one of the people that actually in the Montana Marino debate actually tried to debate it. So no, you're talking. I didn't give that in until later on. I fought that tooth and nail because you could see Montana was a good quarterback, but had fucking a Hall of Fame roster. Marino was playing with me at fucking running back. So I always I defended the shit out of Marino.
Well, I mean, my answer to that and the thousands and maybe tens of thousands of calls I took on that subject, because it was a very popular lean on
80s,
sports
90s.
topic of the day. You would be out of ammunition completely. And people would, throw out there, "Hey, who's the better quarterback, Marino or Montana?" And my comeback was always, if you flip-flop the teams.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't one of those cases where he could take Hisen and beat Ewan, as Bum Phillips stated about Don
Montana
Shula.
wasn't winning shit on that team. I'm sorry. And Montana was a great quarterback, but he wasn't winning.
Marino has the 49er personnel, offensively and defensively. He fucking wins 4 championships, too. I don't think there's any doubt about that. All right, Georgia stuns Florida. That's another one in the headlines. They were down 26, the Guiders, in that game, and came back and took the lead late in the ballgame, Louis. They rallied all the way from 26 down, took a lead, and then got outscored in the final minute or so and ended up losing to Georgia. So that was a bit of a stunner. The Combine, is it underway already, the Combine? Because my favorite thing about the Combine is reading about the people who aren't going to do anything that you would want them to do to prove their merit and their worth as a lofty draft pick, where immediately it's stated, well, you know what? He's not going to throw, that quarterback. Cam Ward's not going to throw a single ball. And you're asking yourself, well, then what is the purpose of this? Now, we all know that it used to just be to gather everybody together so they could go ahead and do medical exams. That was the original purpose. And then they started doing all these crazy workout things, and the 40-yard dash became a very prominent fixture there, and a measuring stick, a barometer. I don't know. What do you make of the vertical leap, Lubie? That thing scares me, being a Jew with flat feet, as we talked about yesterday, Jew feet on the show. The vertical leap there, I don't think I could even get to the bottom one. Could you? When they put that little thing there with the, you got to go ahead and swat something after you jump up there, and they measure how high you actually got off the ground. That would be, all they need is a thin sheet of paper, and they'd be able to measure my vertical leap. But I'm not involved in that. But the Combine, wasn't that like a hot topic with people? Where everybody's speculating whose stock is rising at the Combine. I'm not sure that I'm absorbed in that just yet. And then what? Would this be? I don't know. It should rank up there somewhere. Diana Taurasi announcing her retirement, 20 years in the WNBA. This woman's accomplishments, they were too many for me to even write down. I got tired of writing. I started to get writer's cramp. But, just a couple of things with Diana Taurasi. 20 years in the WNBA, played a lot of ball. I think she played in Russia and anywhere where they would roll out a basketball where she could make some money in the offseason. 11-time All-Star. That's kind of surprising. I would have thought she was an All-Star every year, just automatically on the Mickey Mantle theory, where you give a couple of old geezers an automatic All-Star berth no matter what. How could she be left off the All-Star team, Diana Taurasi, unless
she's like 80?
10-time All-WNBA first team, Rookie of the Year 2004, scoring title And I think that was 2009, assist leader in 2014, all-time leading scorer, 6 Olympic gold medals, 3 national championships as a collegian on the Geno Monster teams that she played on with Sue Bird. And this is before CC, before Caitlin Clark. Diana Taurasi gave me hope that women could play the game at a high level.
I don't know. She's the first one I ever, and again, looking at it now, I probably was wrong, but she's the first one I watched and was like, I could see her playing with dudes. I don't know about the NBA, but when she was in college, just fucking dominating, I could see her at least.
She played like a guy. That was the thing.
In the intramurals, when you would fuck around, and you would always hear about like that story that Ken talks about, where like Tennessee, Pat Summit would always have like the backups on the men's team, like dudes that never played, take on her like team that had won 3 straight titles, and they would work them. Yeah. Like watching Taurasi was the first one that I was like, I think she could play with them. I know about the NBA. I'm not a lunatic. Caitlin Clark would average 20. Okay, you're stupid. But like I just watching her play and just dominate, and the way, like you're saying, the style she played was the first one where it was like, she played with dudes most of her life. Like you could see that like she was not intimidated by fucking anyone, and she could play every style of basketball.
Well, and she had the moves as if she had been playing. And this is something that's being talked about because of what are they calling this 3-on-3 league? Relevant or whatever, irrelevant. I'm not sure what it is, the name that they have for this thing. But whatever it is, I was watching a couple of interviews with some of the players that are involved, and they were saying, and I believe that they have a one-on-one tournament, like the old Vitalis one-on-one.
Oh, men and women.
Talking about, and supposedly there was some mention that maybe the NBA should go with this, but that the NBA players' ego would be destroyed and shattered if they lost, which I believe is true. Because I've told this story many times. You know me, Lubie. When we do interviews, I like to sort of ingratiate myself to whoever the guest is by knowing something about them that a lot of people would never have observed or mentioned. And I remember talking to Bob McAdoo when he first came on the scene here with the Miami Heat, the great Bob McAdoo. And I still remember him losing to Jeff Petrie for the championship. Jeff Petrie, who was like a 6'5" guard for the Portland Trailblazers, very good player. And they had the Vitalis one-on-one. It was very briefly the halftime Phil show. And I think a lot of people really liked this. You'd see like Bob Lanier going against Ernie DiGregorio. There were some real size mismatches there, but you're asking yourself, okay, can the quick guard who can shoot from the outside beat the monster center who's going to dominate and grab every rebound in a regular ball game? But does that work in a one-on-one game? It was really David versus Goliath type of stuff, which you would have thought was the case with Petrie versus McAdoo. And I remember asking McAdoo something about, I reminded him that he lost to Jeff Petrie in a Vitalis one-on-one. You should have seen the glare he gave me. It was end of interview, Lubie. I mean, here I am thinking, you know me, Mr. Clever. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up, not in a derogatory way, just because I loved the Vitalis one-on-one as a halftime fill. It was the best thing ever, I thought. And McAdoo still was bitter about his loss to Jeff Petrie.
Petrie he was a really good college player, and he was a good pro. Bob McAdoo, especially at the time, I don't know where he ranks now because we've had so many players and people forget about him.
Top 50 player.
He's one of the great big men ever. Like in a sport that revolved around the big men until like the Jordan era, like the mid 80s.
Sure.
The sport was all about the big man. He was one of those dudes, one of the early great big men shooters. Like you said, like today, like they would show before Heat games, like McAdoo in the corner in like his 60s. And he couldn't fucking move, just fucking draining shit. Like the dude in his era when big men didn't shoot, he was like a precursor.
Baseline jumper was amazing. Ewing had that, but McAdoo was much better at it.
Well, like to lose a Petrie.
Petrie, I mean, it's no disgrace to lose one-on-one. Petrie, the guy was an excellent ball player. And
it was different too. Wasn't he more of a guard or at least a
he was a guard. He was like a 6'5" guard. He was a very big guard for that period of time in the NBA. But still bitter, McAdoo was about that. I remember hitchhiking from Syracuse to Buffalo to see the Buffalo Braves when McAdoo was the main cog on that team. And they had some other good players. They had Ernie No-D, the aforementioned Ernie No-D Gregorio. And they also had Randy Smith, who was a real good NBA player. The Buffalo Braves as an expansion team weren't terrible. And McAdoo was a big part of that. Of course, we noticed him far more when he went to the Lakers. But Bob McAdoo, still bitter. If you ask him about it today, Lubie, and you mentioned Jeff Petrie or held up a picture of Jeff Petrie in front of him, he probably take it out of your hand, roll it up into a little ball, and fire it back in your face and saying, "Okay, next question," and that would be it. So is it true that the women were implying that the NBA players' ego was too fragile for them to take a chance on losing in a one-on-one game? And they were also alluding to the idea that now, and you never would see this, and I don't know that I've seen it since. I drove by a park the other night, and there were a couple of women playing basketball in games with guys on the half court. But women didn't really play basketball together. You wouldn't see like
No,
six girls out there playing 3-on-3 with 12 girls waiting in the wings there to try and take the court like you did with guys.
You rarely saw women play in the pickup games. Like, I'm wondering now if you see more of it, but like once in a while you'd have a girl being in a pickup game and no one knew how to fucking deal with it. But I mean, hoping that it's more integrated. But you definitely, I've never, ever seen, and I played a lot of pickup basketball in my life. I literally played daily for years. Never saw one court like 5-on-5 women, and
That would never be all women. You're right.
never saw that. Like, again, just seeing one chick playing. I mean, we weren't like mean to her, but it was always like you didn't know how to.
She had to have Taurasi-like ability to compete.
You rarely saw them playing with the
Yeah.
dudes. Now, again, it probably I'm presuming it's more integrated now because you're seeing the women's game is, even though we make fun of it, it's better than it's more athletic than it once was. But still, I don't know. But yeah, I think that's stupid. Then, like, what kind of look? I don't think any woman's beating a dude 1-on-1. I just don't see it. But if they played it, I'd love to see a team game. I'd love to see like a 3-on-3 because you can work to someone's strengths and you can have matchups and you can use the different forms of playing the game. That I think it would be cool to see how the
You would
women
want to see like Anthony Edwards going against, say, Kevin Durant for the championship of a 1-on-1, or LeBron James.
No, I'm talking about a man versus a woman 1-on-1. Like, I don't see
okay.
beating a
Well, I
man
mean, that you'd
1-on-1.
have to think women are going to end up.
That's what I'm
court.
saying. Like, I thought that's what they're being dumb if the guys aren't scared about that. They don't want to fucking embarrass.
No, they weren't talking. They were talking about the NBA players playing against each other in a 1-on-1 thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
why
Not
not?
against a woman.
Why not?
I
Don't they do it?
subscribe to the John McEnroe theory that he espoused many years ago, that you could take any of the top 150 men in the world and they would beat whoever is number one on the women's side.
Oh,
Now,
yeah,
maybe
it's not-
that's evened out a little bit, but still, when you look at the power, the women have exponentially gotten better. I mean, you watch some of these howitzers that the women are hitting, and you're thinking, and look, I know this from firsthand experience. Any woman that actually has real tennis form is going to knock the shit out of a guy that doesn't, no matter how effective he may think his game is. But if you're talking about somebody
pros.
going against, Kekmanovic, the guy that just won the Delray tournament, and taking him against like Swiatek, I think I'm going with the man every single time, and it would be into prohibitive.
physicality, especially if you play smart in basketball. You just back them down, and you could block every fucking shot they should have. But I'd like to see a mixture one, like they do.
Bigger,
this
stronger, faster, I would say, Libby.
But why wouldn't they play one? What are you? How bad is your ego? Like, that's so weird to me because you grow up competing, and if you lose, it didn't end you. It just pissed you off, made you wanted to play harder. Like, why would you care? No one's gonna like, oh my god, he
Wouldn't
lost.
you want to prove it, Libby, that you were the best one-on-one
Yes.
player in the league?
Why wouldn't you? I don't know what 1-on-1 does for you in an NBA standpoint, but if
It's important. Look, how many times if you've seen isolation plays, they don't do it as much as they used to, where they would do a clear out for Kobe or whatever, and you would have four guys standing around on the other side of the court like they were federal workers looking for work now, and then Kobe would operate 1-on-1, and as soon as they sent the guy after him, he didn't even care. It was just like, okay,
I'd love it more than this fucking shitty All-Star game. Like, if they were willing to take that serious, like we saw with the hockey thing, I'd rather them do anything but what the fuck that was.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. All right, and then one more thing, and Tony Segreto is going to join us here. In fact, you can pop Tony in here because we want to look at a good-looking guy here. What's happening, Tone? How are you, my friend? The great Tony Segreto joining us here on the show.
I am fine. How are you, Defo and Lubie?
Good morning, Mr. Segreto. How are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing well. We had something you would have appreciated yesterday. It's up on Bleacher Brothers.
What is
And this was great. I don't know if you remember the great Phil Hendry when he was on WIOD.
it? Yeah.
still just as hysterical today, if not more so, as he was back then. And so he did my conversation show on Bleacher Brothers yesterday afternoon, and we were joined late in the show by a local radio legend, Paul Castronova, who has been at the top of the game here for over 40 years. Pretty incredible. Very Segreto-esque, too. Just a very humble, successful, iconic broadcaster. So the two of those guys together were great. And Phil Hendry, of course, reminiscing about some of the characters he developed here, including, I don't know if you remember this. Remember when Phil became Booger Belmonte?
Oh, yes.
And he was the big Buffalo Bills guy, and he would just put the needle right in the eyeball of Dolphin fans.
Yeah.
And I forgot that we actually had him as Booger Belmonte on one of our Dolphin pregame shows.
Yep.
And he brought a whole group of Buffalo fans singing Buffalo fight songs up on the stage. It was hysterical.
I was there.
Yeah,
You ought to have me as a guest on your Bleach Report.
What's that?
You ought to have me as a guest.
Funny, man. They're calling for you. I was trying to negotiate some kind of compensation for you, and then started to mention some numbers, and the guy had a heart attack and nearly died. All right, we're going to come right back, Tony, if you don't mind. We're going to throw a couple of words, very important words from our fine and enduring sponsors here on the show. And then we're going to come back. Tony Segreto, and speaking of sponsors, Ed Garcia is going to join us from Texas Roadhouse Restaurants, Old School with Tony Segreto, coming up next in a moment. Now that.
The time.
8:39.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-4.
What we gonna do right here is go back, way back into time.
We are now kicking it old school with the one and only Tony Segreto. Brought to you by Texas Roadhouse.
Tell me, doctor, where are we going this time?
All right, welcome back to the show. The legendary Tony Segreto joins us here for a little old school. He does this every Wednesday with us, kind enough to join us from whatever part of the country he happens to be in. I did want to mention this, Lubie, because I actually wrote this down. I was perusing an article, possible breakout stars for every team in Major League Baseball this year. I'm trying to get into the swing of baseball. I'm still a huge baseball fan. I don't know that I want to watch entire games involving anybody.
I'll watch an entire game if I go. If I'm
Yeah.
home. Yeah.
Would you be inclined to go to a Marlin game? I mean, not just because they're garbage, but because you're...
He said no. I like to
No, you would not even be inclined to go to see like the Yankees.
I'll go to a Yankee game. I'll go to a Mets game. I'll go to a Tigers game. Joey Kornblit and I went to a Detroit Tigers game in Detroit.
Yes.
So we go there and we're walking there, and he says, so how long are we going to stay? Just a couple innings? I said, no, all 9. He says, what? I said, we're staying all 9 innings. He goes, really?
He's like sad.
No matter what the score, the situation.
So we go.
The game is dragging out.
I call Bob Avila, and we get tickets. We get seats right down behind the batter's box in the second row.
Nice.
And he goes, oh, my God.
He loved it.
And we stayed the 9 innings. He had no idea the time had gone by.
Oh, nice.
That's
When you're there, it's fine.
He loved it so much. And
Was he ever inclined to play baseball? I would imagine he'd be pretty good.
He must have played at some point.
no, I don't think so.
Joey, of course, the great highlight player, Joey Cornblit.
He. By the way, what does he have to do? Well, Lubie, I'll talk to you off the air. What does he have to do to call in or to be on with us next week?
Send him the fucking link. I'd love to have Joey.
That would be an honor. What are you talking about?
Fucking amazing. He like watches our show, and I literally will mention him. He doesn't even say anything. I just see his name pop up, and I just to pay homage to him. I'm like, hey, Joey. Hey,
this kid had everything, and then he revolutionized the game.
He did.
That I mean, you had Nancy Lieberman and others in the women's basketball. That
he revolutionized the game.
He revolutionized a game that wasn't even an American game.
That sadly doesn't exist anymore.
Marginally, it's still around, but not like it was when they were whooping and hollering. Which reminds me, Tony, and so I was 13 at the time. I still remember where I was. I started the show talking about this because I just caught it before I came on the show here this morning. That this is the now 51st anniversary, 1964. Of the Clay Liston fight at the Miami Beach Convention Center. Now, you would have been 15. Were you already under the wing of one Bernie Rosen?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Were you there by any chance? Tony Segreto?
I was 17. I was 17 when I first started.
Geez, really? You really were that young?
What was your situation with regard? I mean, you would have been in high school, so I mean, what were you at all a part of the scene of Clay and eventually Ali and Liston?
I watched it and listened to it, but I wasn't there.
All right. Because I don't remember that being televised. I guess it was. Yeah, it had to be.
It was.
I listened to it on the radio. I remember listening to it on the freaking radio.
On the radio. Yes, we did. I listened to it on the radio. And it was my father, me, my uncles who sat around the radio and listened to it.
Now, were you also, and I mention this all the time when I talk about my incident there at the Jamaica OTB, where I was fascinated by the fact there was a speaker in the ceiling where the race call was coming through.
Yeah.
And all of these sick degenerates that, as I've mentioned, they all look like they came off the old Jethro Tull Aqualung cover. Just a seediest looking crowd, but everybody's looking up at the speaker as if you could hear it better. So, and that was a weird thing about when you see any shot of old school family gatherings around the radio to listen to like the Orson Welles thing, War of the Worlds.
Yeah, you're all looking at the radio because
staring at the radio. Why the fuck were you doing that?
You hear better. You hear it when you see.
Feel like you're in it. I don't know.
That's old school shit, there, Tony.
That's old school, boy. To this day, I have to like watch it or look at it or something standing by. To really appreciate the sound, the purpose of the whole, ambiance of it. So
it's weird, yeah, very strange that you have to be staring at the speaker. I was going to bring this up, and we're going to bring on Ed Garcia as well, but and we were talking about going to a baseball game. Now, I haven't been to a Marlin game in quite some time,
like 3 or 4 years.
I don't intend on going.
And I love baseball, and once I'm there, I like the atmosphere. I think everybody would agree that the stadium is very comfortable. The one thing that
you want to be the only one at the stadium.
I don't mind that though. See, because I was the only guy there for the whole 1998 season, which after they stripped the team down following '97, I still retained. I had bought season tickets with a couple of other guys. My friend Mike Fernandez, great cameraman, and great TV guy who's still involved with Fox Sports. But now it's not Fox Sports; it's FanDuel now. And Rosie Paymont. You remember Rosie Paymont had the penalty box lounge on Federal Highway.
Oh, yeah.
And Rosie, of course, was part of a big hockey family. And so we bought season tickets the first year. And who was the guy? Don Smiley. Remember Don Smiley?
Yes, I do.
Don Smiley was the president of the team, and we had done him a couple of favors with some video support that we had given him before they got started for their original marketing campaign. So I believe that even though it was a lottery, it was kind of like the Patrick Ewing lottery. Where, and, let's bring in Ed, man. Ed, you're a little dark there in the background. I don't know if you have. Okay, there you are. But and he pulls us seats that you were talking about. We actually had. They had a 8 rows of founders seats.
Are they founders? Yeah, I'm like, isn't that
they had 8 rows of founders seats that you had to pay a premium for, but we had the seats 1 row behind the founder seats, so you couldn't get any better. They were $14.50 a copy.
Oh God!
And we're right behind home plate for all of these games. They win the World Series.
One there?
No. Back then, I mean, in '93, of course, the stadium was
First
packed.
year,
They drew pretty good crowds for an expansion team. They did very, very well, and it sort of was a mixed bag. But '96, they weren't bad. They brought in a couple of pitchers, right? Kevin Brown, Al Leiter,
Mhm.
and then they won the series in '97. But in '98, I was the only one there because they got rid of everybody. And I enjoyed it. I didn't mind that at all. You'd hear some guy way out in the left field stands going, "I said no cheese on that." He's on the phone ordering a pizza. He's getting ready to get out of there, and he knew he was gonna have no problem exiting the stadium. But I was reading this about. Are you a Marlin fan, a baseball fan at all, Ed Garcia? I'm thinking you're mostly football centric.
Well, Tigers, right?
But
I do,
oh, yeah,
I do
you're
enjoy the Tigers, but I love going to the Marlins because it's so easy to get autographed baseballs. I mean, you can walk right up there. On the
Have they approached you about improving the food at the concession stand?
Exactly.
Yes.
Please.
We get Texas Roadhouse there.
We actually have been working on trying to get our peanuts there, but that is
Oh,
a pretty
wow.
cool.
That's a move. That's a move.
Yeah,
And-
you can go to quite a few stadiums. We're at the Bulldogs, Tennessee Volunteers.
Oh,
I
nice.
mean, a lot of University of Florida. You can get our peanuts, the Texas Roadhouse peanuts in the bag like you would get it at the restaurant. But we haven't worked out with the Marlins yet. But what I do like about going to the Marlins game, one, you can get front row really easy, usually typically under $20. And they just had such a wide variety of food. You could get sushi on top of a kielbasa, stir fried. I mean, it's very,
but Ed-
very unique. So,
But Ed, do you trust the sushi there? Really? Do you trust the sushi at a ball game?
They could have fished
I
it right out
mean-
of the Miami River. What are you
That'd be
talking about?
fresh. It was
100%.
Miami River.
Had to be fresh. I mean, it was right down the block there. They caught it. I don't know. The food there is all right.
The food's fine.
I'm a traditional.
But do you trust
really
sushi?
good hot
Better
dog.
at the Roadhouse.
But when they hand you a hot dog in an aluminum foil, bag, I'm not a fan of that. I mean, it ruins the whole impact of it. I like some guy that looked like he just
Shriveled
changed
up?
the wheel in his car, taking a thing. He had the thing around his neck. I don't know if you remember this at Yankee Stadium, or certainly it was in vogue at Shea. Tony, I'm not sure how many games you attended in New York ballparks as a kid. And then the guy would grab the bun with no glove, and he would, stick a fork in some really, dirty. It looked like this water came out of the Hudson River at the height of a pollution cycle. And then he would stick the hot dog in there and give you a packet of Gulden's spicy brown mustard.
Ooh,
And it was culinary nirvana.
yes, it was the best.
Yeah, all in his
It
fancy
was the
stuff.
best.
I mean, never it really was favorable. And now, does it say Texas Roadhouse on the bag? I can't remember.
Yeah. It does. Right in the middle. It's perfect.
Yes, it's
Those are
a
damn
really
good
cool piece. We're getting into a lot of different stadiums and ballparks, and it's been working out really, really well. Just some of the stadiums just aren't a big fan of picking up the shells, but a lot of them do it already. And essentially, we do give them to the stadiums for free or at cost. We're just obviously doing it for the
Promotion.
advertising and the logo being
Not
out
bad.
there.
Great
Do
idea.
you
No wonder
get
you guys
your
are on top.
peanuts from? Do you get your peanuts from a special vendor from a special place in
We
Georgia?
do. Yeah, we basically have like half of North Carolina.
Shit.
Some of the best peanut farms out there. And, we go through very high scrutiny. And, I think our peanuts are some of the absolute best, between freshness and quality and consistency. They're just
good.
it's just
They're
a big part
really
of Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah, it was always Bazzini peanuts for me out of the. I don't know if that was a Northeast brand, but Bazzini peanuts. And you're thinking maybe somebody who was connected got them in the door there at Yankee Stadium in Shea, but they were real good too. But I wanted to say this: I mean, if there was any enticement to go to a Marlin game, it would be this report that their breakout player, which was also in the category like at the very bottom of these are guys we have low confidence will have a breakout year. The guy named Eric Wagaman. And the theory behind it was that the Marlins' terrible projected lineup, unabated refusal to spend on even marginal upgrades, makes this guy a possibility to take a step forward. And I'm thinking,
They're so bad.
that's a pretty fucking bleak
That he
report.
has to be good.
Would you agree?
Oh my
Yes.
god.
Awful. Not a very encouraging thing to think, I got to go there to see this Wagaman guy. He could be the next Joe Pepitone or something.
No, I don't think so.
All right, Ed. So have they ratcheted up the excitement for our man Dusty May and your Michigan basketball team? Because it does appear, I don't know. I mean, Duke annihilates the University of Miami last night, and now number 2 in the country. Them Gators lose. Auburn's been consistent all year under Bruce Pearl, and probably deserving of the number 1 overall seed and maybe the favoritism to win the championship. But I think what? I mean, are there anywhere from 10 to 15 teams that could win it all? And are the people, the Wolverine backers, thinking that this Dusty May is going to do it again? What do you think?
I feel really good considering where the program was last year. I mean, Dusty May's got I feel like a great shot for Coach of the Year. I mean, what he did with that program is absolutely incredible. He did resign. There was a little bit of fear of him heading back to Indiana. So that's really great news for all the Wolverines. And they got a big game coming up March 9th versus Michigan State,
Yes.
Really to take the conference championship, which, again, they didn't have a chance. They were like looking at being 12th in the conference. Here they're looking really, really solid. But, I think Duke's looking pretty solid. They are definitely the favorite. Keep an eye on UK. They slumped in the middle of the season, but don't forget, UK did beat Duke. They beat Gonzaga. They got a couple of big games. That might be a fun team to watch as we go through the brackets. And, Tennessee's not too shabby. They're kind of hiding out there in the corner. So they could come in with a bit of a surprise here and there. So for those of you that like to play on those brackets, those are a couple of big teams to watch.
What do you say we do a bracket, the 4 of us?
Ed talked about it last week. We should do it.
Let's do it.
Oh, and maybe we get some fans involved. And
yes.
possible gift card at Texas Roadhouse.
Hey, now we're talking.
That's better than winning money. It really is.
Yeah.
Ed, the $1 million question.
It's still working. It's not signed, but yes, it's coming together. Hey, there is like legit, we gave them an offer. We're kind of working on a little bit of really, yesterday it was actually quite a few emails on it, but it's the closing period. So when the building is done, when do we start paying rent and all that, fun legal stuff. So there was about 7 emails. So, a couple $1,000 back and forth, I'm sure. Can't wait to see that bill, but
I know we make fun of Tony about this, but it is interesting that we're getting to see sort of the behind the scenes. Most of us have been involved in real estate from like a residential standpoint, but not commercially, let alone from a standpoint of you're involved in multiple locations. You guys are smart enough a lot of the time to understand that real estate is the game as much as it is the restaurant business, and you make real estate you've said that's a big, it's not only your vendors, but it's also you are smart with where you put locations so that you don't have to jack up prices as well. That's a big part of, especially in the state of Florida, we're seeing between the insurance, property taxes, and if you don't own the property, rent. But like, how involved are you? It feels like we're making like you have all the answers. So it doesn't seem like there's some other person. Like it seems like you're going out there and you're scouting yourself, and then you're also involved in a lot of negotiating and a lot of the purchases itself.
It's a big part of my part. I'd say it's a third of my job is actually the real estate. I don't have a broker's license or a real estate license, but I'm very well educated on it. I do have a local broker, and then we have a broker at our office that they communicate and they do all the paperwork back and forth between the letters of intent and then we obviously have legal do the contracts and the leases. But you nailed it on the head, Lubie. It's a big part of why we keep our prices the way they are, and is signing a really good lease. I mean, I lose leases all the time because someone will come in, they're like, "Oh, we'll pay double," but then that's the reason why they're charging $5, $10 more a stake is just to cover that, that rent. And we don't want to pass that rent on to the consumer. It's about creating that family, fun, friendly atmosphere. We like a full restaurant, not 7 people, I mean, hey, it's great to hear that person in the Marlins Stadium on the other side, but, we want line dancing, we want a show. And that's a big part of it. So plus, our owner operators, of each location, they get a percentage of the cut. So, what would you rather have? A busy restaurant with low rent or a busy restaurant with high rent? So easy math.
You have
and he says that part of those Davy negotiations, and I get that funny feeling for some reason that when you do open up, Tony will be moving for some reason.
I'm right down the
Taking
street
his
from
track
there
all
now.
the way to Vermont on a permanent basis, and then he'll be bugging you about Burlington. But
We'll do a Tony corner. You know, like maybe a bar stool with Tony's
empty
name
tape,
on it.
yeah.
You know, we have a Kent corner. You know, our founder. You know, we have a Kent corner, and we have a Willie Nelson. If you don't know, you know, Willie Nelson was a big part, and he actually is an owner of owns big percentages of some of the original Texas Roadhouses.
Wow, who knew
Yeah,
that?
he liked to partake in you know, the Smoky Mountains quite a bit with potentially our founder, you know, and enjoying that exotic herb and having a great time at Texas Roadhouse.
And then
Yeah.
get the munchies, then then
100%. I mean, that bread, from what I hear, that bread is just something else.
Oh, you don't want to be smoking a lot of
So-
weed, you know, and have that put in front of you. Yeah, you'll eat like 11 rolls, like we do when we attack them. Like we haven't, you know, have been starving for the last 6 days. Andy, our good friend Andy, says that part of the deal that's holding it up in Davie is that you're negotiating for half of the mineral rights, which I think in Davie is just like some horse tongue. No,
Hey, it is worth money. You know, there are some people out there willing to buy it, but yes, those mineral rights are a big deal these days.
and save me a seat. So while Tony's schnorring for you to open up a whole new restaurant, I'm planning a trip now to Keeneland in Lexington for the spring.
Nice. They're big in Kentucky.
And it's amazing. I was with a very finicky guy that always has to call the shots, one of those food guys that you despise because you have to go to the restaurants only that he wants to go to and then order whatever it is that he thinks is, you know, the right thing on the menu. And we blow by the Texas Roadhouse, and I'm looking in the parking lot there, and it was like a Wednesday night. And the parking lot is jammed. I mean, I think they even had to have. It was kind of like when you go by a Chick-fil-A on Federal Highway, where they got like a cop waving people in, and they don't want any cars overlapping into the street. And that has to be one of your more popular destinations because the people in Kentucky absolutely love this place. Probably because they're
100%.
used to getting hosed at other steakhouses for double and triple the price.
Absolutely. We have two there in the Lexington area, and obviously our office is in Louisville. And you get to enjoy some really great bourbons on top of a great steak, you know, when you're visiting there. I mean, fresh from the tap, so can't go wrong. You know, and Wednesdays, you know, a lot of Texas Roadhouses, and it's really kind of coming back. You know, most Roadhouses do a special called Wild West Wednesday. So you'll see the staff typically dressed up in some flannels, extra cowboy boots, and rocking the buckles and all that other stuff. But again, they're all different, but most of them do an 8-ounce sirloin for up to $3 off. So you're getting the 8-ounce for the price of the 6. And so you're talking as low as 12, depending on, you know, where you're at in the US, you know, 12 to $13 for a half-pound steak. You're going to get anywhere from a 5 to 9-ounce salad, depending on what salad you want. And you get a 1-pound sweet potato plus the bread, the rolls, the peanuts. I mean, that's a ton of food.
You're in heaven.
And some of the best. I mean, I'm a big fan. Like, I love our New York strip. That is like my go-to because I can get that black and blue, you know, which is very rare. If you don't know, I really enjoy that. But if I'm going for a steak, you know, and I want to be a fat kid, I'm going the ribeye. But if I want to go nice, lean, that sirloin is out of this world. We do serve the best sirloin out there, hands down. I'm ready to arm wrestle someone over that one.
Well, you're a great American, Ed Garcia. We love you. And, Texas Roadhouse, of course, very happy to have you guys affiliated with us all of these years. Old school with Tony Segreto. Well, we can't thank you enough for all of that, and can't thank you enough for joining us here on the show today. Thanks so much for being with us.
Bye, Ed.
Thanks,
Garcia.
guys. Go Blue.
There you go.
You don't remember Bazzini peanuts, Tony? Bazzini's.
Yes,
Bazzini was like the peanut of choice
Oh yeah,
in all ballpark.
the best at the time.
Was it Universal? Because I'll
No,
never
it
forget.
was
I mean,
just in
there
the
have
East.
been many, not many, but there have been a couple of really famous peanut vendors, including a guy in L.A. And I remember when peanuts were $1 a bag at the ballpark. So that shows you how far back I'm
Get your
going.
peanuts. Get your peanuts here.
The guy was great. The guy in L.A., he would fire, like, you could be in the upper deck, and he could be like 2 decks below in the mezzanine, and he would fire a bag up there. And then the way he collected the money, he would throw a tennis ball to the person that bought the peanuts.
Yeah.
And then the tennis ball it was cut in half, and you had to like twist it.
Twist it.
You would put the money in the tennis ball, and then throw it back to the guy.
Yeah.
And I mean,
That dates
I
you.
don't think Ron Say and Steve Garvey were as efficient in
That dates us,
crossing the ball
Defo.
across the diamond as these guys were.
That dates us. That dates us.
I
Big
never heard of any of
time.
this that you're talking about.
Yeah, and the guy was on like Johnny Carson a couple of times too. He was like a very, very, and probably among the most famous vendors in the history of the whole motif there. All right, Tony, what do you got going? You're still down here. You're going to be out at the track on Friday.
See you Friday at the track.
Were you inclined at all to watch Duke hammer the University of Miami? And any opinion? You're on the board of directors now. I don't know how tough of a decision was it that they get the hot young Duke assistant now to be their new head coach on the
Duke
basketball
assistant
side.
could be, in basketball, well, like football too, but basketball especially, because you only have 10 players. Your coach is the draw, and the school is the draw. And this Duke coach is really special, and I think he's going to upgrade the program something wild. I mean, I can only foresee it going up, and it could be a basketball school. It could be a basketball school and a football school. So,
we'll see. All right, and what are you hearing about Carson Beck? Is he the one-arm man in The Fugitive, or is this a guy that should be chasing down, Richard Kimball, or is he going to be okay? That was Lieutenant Philip Gerard. The one-arm man was trying to escape everybody, but
I don't know. I have to wait and see.
All right.
It's just
you're non-committal on this, Tony. I don't like that. Usually you're gun-ho. Like, yeah, don't worry about a thing. Mario's got it all under control.
I don't know.
All right.
I have to wait and see. You know who I like? I like Notre Dame, and I like FSU in this one, because I think FSU is going to come back big time.
Wow, that's
yeah, the fingers. I hope.
Even Lubie hasn't sniffed that Kool-Aid yet.
No, I think they're going to be vastly better, but I'm not making predictions.
And Notre Dame has a quarterback battle, so they got 3 kids that can play the game. So it's going to be an interesting season.
All right. Already counting the time up until college football. Here we are trying to wean everybody off the ledge there.
Combine.
Trying to convince them not to jump off the pier because they have to wait like another 100 days or so for football to even be in the news. But you are encouraging people to go ahead and fire it off on Notre Dame.
Fire it off.
Yeah, if you can arrange Joey Kornblit, we love Joey.
Joey,
nobody better.
So send me the link,
yeah.
and I'll send it to Joey. And next week we'll have him on with us.
Oh, beautiful! Legendary South Florida iconic sports figure, the great Joey Kornblit. All right, Tony, thanks so much. Always a pleasure, my friend. You have a great day, and we'll see you Friday.
Yes.
Very nice. I'm going to grab that first piece of feta cheese off of his plate there. That's the best thing about being next to Tony, right?
You just get feta cheese.
He puts aside all of the good stuff. I love that about Tony. All the stuff I like, the onions, the cheese. All right, we had a good time being with you today. Diana Taurasi, we should salute her retirement from WNBA basketball action. I don't know, is she the most favorable figure? She rubbed some people the wrong way. I don't know. What do you think? Diana Taurasi, how will she be characterized? She certainly should be respected 1,000% for the way she played the game. So, we applaud her career. 20 years, 6 Olympic gold medals. Not bad. Definitely worthy of acknowledgement, at least in this spot here.
She's one of the greats ever. I don't know what you do, where you place her. I don't know enough about women's sports to do that, but she's one of the greats.
I still love this. The Marlins' terrible projected lineup, an unabated refusal to spend even marginal money on upgrades.
I'm even trying. Yeah, it's just stupid.
Wow. And who is this guy? Eric Wagaman. He's played in 18 major league games so far, and they brought him up from Double-A, and that's their breakthrough candidate. That is not overwhelmingly encouraging.
They had a bunch of guys in the minors, so I don't know who. Like, where are those guys? Like, I don't even know that name. That's not even one of the names I've heard.
Yeah, no, I knew nothing about him. So until this morning. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. We will catch you on Barrier Bookie. That's on nofilter.net, but about to shift over to Bleacher Brothers. I think you'll really enjoy that. We had a 2-in-1 day yesterday with Scotty M, who's picking hockey games. And reminded me, Andy brought this line up the other day where a guy loses 20 in a row. and he's calling his bookmaker and kind of crying about the fact that it's costing him maybe his relationship with his family, and his bank account is certainly swimming in a sea of red ink. And the bookie says, "Well, you know what? You're not very good at picking football, so why don't you try something else, like the NHL?" And the guy fires back, "What do I know about hockey?"
What do you know about football, you dumbass?
He had a hockey game yesterday with the Lightning over the slumping Edmonton Oilers. So there's always some good insight on Barrier Bookie. And we will see you later on. Thanks so much for being with us. Don't forget, I mean, if you were a fan of the great Phil Hendry and any kind of radio conversation, if you were a radio fan, radio listener, Phil Hendry and Paul Castronovo on this week's edition. And you were a part of this thing, Lubie, and we thank you very much for doing that. But
Yeah, Henry's great.
how hysterical was it? I'm sure your father enjoyed that because Phil was still very much on his game.
He was great.
It was a lot of fun. So that's up as conversations on the Bleacher Brothers network. All right, we'll see you next time as we leave you now that.
The time.
It's 9:08.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.